Make no mistake, this is not about Donald Trump. This is about America. It's about Americans. It's about American values. It's about our constitutional republic, our national sovereignty. Now, people need to realize this is not about Donald Trump. He just happens to be really the face of it because they can use that to make him a caricature.
I'm Dr. Duke with The New American, and I'm joined today by Brannon Howse, who is a contributor to WVW TV, and he is the producer of an interesting film called Siege. Brannon, thanks for joining the show today.
Glad to be with you, Dr. Duke.
Tell us a little bit about your project Siege. What is it?
Well, it really fits with these riots of 2020. We kind of knew this was coming. Trevor Loudon and I and others have been talking about it on radio and TV for some time. And it's called Siege, as you've said. And the subtitle is The Clear and Present Dangers Pushing America to the Brink of a Marxist-Islamic Revolution, Civil War, World War III, and globalism. And all those things are going on now. I mean, the Marxist-Islamic Revolution. We are seeing the Islamists. We're seeing the Islamists in Congress fanning the flames of this. Omar, Tashida Tlaib up there in Michigan. The Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison. He is holding up the Antifa book, back in, I think, 2018, we have a screenshot of, promoting the Antifa book. He did a trip to Mecca, Islamic trip to Mecca, paid for by a subsidiary of the Muslim Brotherhood. He's an Islamist, but he's yet working with Antifa, promoting them. So this is that red-green axis, that Marxist-Islamic revolution we've been warning about a long time. Now, are we in a civil war? Absolutely, we're in a civil war. We've been saying that prior to the riots of 2020. We make the case in our film we're in a civil war. Now you're seeing it on the streets. Is this does this have to do anything with a World War III? Yes. China declared war on us a long time ago. When you're hacking our power grid, as China and Russia have done, that's an act of war, or at least former CIA analyst Peter Pry in our documentary says it should be considered an act of war when you're hacking on our power grid. And then when you have Russia and China having the largest military exercise in world history in 2018 called Vostok 18, which included practicing for a nuclear strike on NATO and America, and then you have a military exercise of Russia, China, and Iran, and then you have China releasing the coronavirus and spreading that, I think, deliberately. Then you have them through Maoist front groups here in America overseeing these riots, which most Americans don't know. Freedom's Roads, which is a Maoist group here in America, and others are getting direct, we believe, instruction from China. So China releases a virus. They allow it to spread. They weaken us. Now we have street riots. Now, you want to know what I think is coming next? Watch for the attack on the U.S. dollar, an attempt to collapse the U.S. economy, and that will be driven by, I think China, and it'll be driven by America's enemies because we are in an economic war, we are in a cyber war, we are in World War III, and this is all tied to globalism. So everything I predicted in my 8.5-hour documentary with former FBI, CIA, DHS, is right here. And this came out 2019. Why? Because we knew it was coming. Why? Because we're soothsayers? No. We read their reports, like this one, Dr. Duke, I found last week. It's called Burn Down the American Plantation, Call for Revolutionary Abolitionist Movement. It calls for ending police, looting, end of capitalism, end of prisons, end of borders. And who do you think wrote this? It reads just like it was written by former Weather Underground Bill Ayers. In fact, he has an article on his own website we show a screenshot of, called Burn Down the American Plantation. Oh, and what is this called? I think this is likely written by Bill Ayers. So how do we know all this? We read their manuals. They tell us what they're going to do.
Now, 6 months ago, there are a lot of people who might have listened to that and said that's a little over the top. And you paying attention, America, between the fascism of COVID and what they've done to the American people, the unjust use of their gubernatorial powers to undermine the Constitution, and now you've got these lawless riots in the street. Everything you said now makes a lot more sense to the typical American who wasn't paying a lot of attention a year ago. So good for you. We really appreciate that documentary, that Siege, it's called, this movie that you made that exposes this. And let's talk a little bit more specific about this with what's going on right now. A lot of people don't get the fact that what's going on in American cities is not spontaneous. It is not random. It's not even really a response to the George Floyd murder. This is something much bigger. Talk about the people who are funding and promoting this behind the scenes.
Well, again, let me just say they can watch a full hour of Siege the Movie at siegethemovie.com. Siegethemovie.com. Watch 1 hour for free, 8.5 hours. Now, as far as the funding goes, again, when you have unions that have largely, the Democrats allowed the unions to be taken over by the communists, the service employer unions and whatnot. When you allow this, and this is what happened in the 90s, they allowed the communists to take over the unions. And many of the unions, by the way, used to be for borders. They used to be for protecting American jobs. And then they flipped. And now, because the communists got control of it, now they're pushing for all this open border stuff. So you actually don't need any outside funding when much of what you give to your local union, $10 a month or whatever, goes a portion of it to all of these riots and organizing and whatnot. But surely there's Soros money. So whether there's foreign money, and I think there probably is, I think there's definitely foreign direction. In fact, I mean, even the guys up in Minnesota, as clueless as they are, wanted to blame this on white supremacists and whatnot, at least got it right when they said that there was international involvement in this. And indeed, there is. And whether we're talking underground types, Black Panther types, China, Russia, Iran, again, all of these groups are part of this. They want this. They're cheering it on openly. The president of Iran is cheering this on social media. So is the president of Turkey. So again, notice that red-green axis. But what's really shocking, Dr. Duke, is that in our TV show this week at WVW TV, which stands for Worldview Weekend, so WVW TV, they can watch this week's show and last week's show with Trevor Loudon. This week I show the screenshots of something, and actually I talked about this on radio in 2017. So almost 3 years ago, I warned that Antifa and these groups were going overseas for terrorist training. And one reason we know this, because I have a source that told me. Then after my source told me this was going on, Ed Klein came out with a book in 2017 where he stated that the FBI, some of the FBI, were aware of this group, anarchists, going overseas for training from ISIS and Al-Qaeda in bomb making and chemicals. Now, guess, Dr. Duke, who they passed that? I think probably some very patriotic, good FBI agents doing that good legwork. Wrote a report, said this was one of the greatest threats to America since the Weather Underground and Black Lives Matter, and the goal was the destruction of Donald Trump. Now, that's what the FBI report said, according to Ed Klein. Who do you think they passed the report off to?
James Comey.
Pretty close. One of his buddies, Andrew McCabe.
Oh, even better.
And do you think that went into a desk drawer, or do you think it was taken to the president and they became aware of this? And no, I doubt they did. And yet the report says they were able to identify who was throwing Molotov cocktails, who was over there, who was getting training. So here's the question. Were these people arrested? Were they interviewed? Have they been monitored? Or did the deep state FBI, or as Donald Trump has called them, those up on the 7th floor, the dirty, filthy cops on the 7th floor of the FBI, throw this in a drawer and slam it in 2017 because they knew this was coming? I contend it's the latter.
Well, we got a couple of minutes left. Let me ask you, you brought up something, an interesting fact. We know this has been going on for a lot longer than Donald Trump's term in office. But Donald Trump does seem to be a particularly sticking point for them. He's a rallying cry, and I think many of the protesters in the streets who aren't necessarily aware of the Antifa overlordship of the protests really want to stick it to Donald Trump. Where does Donald Trump, the individual and the president, fit in the midst of all this chaos?
Well, when Donald Trump was elected, the day I said before he was elected, and if they go into my VIP club at situationroom.net and they look at the radio show the day after Donald Trump was elected, I said we are entering one of the most dangerous times in American history because of the election of Donald Trump. Now, that was not geared toward Donald Trump. That was because I said they despise the globalist, the Islamist, the Marxist, despise what he stands for. National borders, national sovereignty, national currency, national culture. Anti-globalism, and other things. And if he takes them on and is not a paper tiger, which I didn't think he would be, he confronts them. They're not going to give up the ground they lost the last 8 years. So this is a direction that has gone on due to the values and worldview of Donald Trump. But make no mistake, this is not about Donald Trump. This is about America. It's about Americans. It's about American values. It's about our constitutional republic, our national sovereignty. Now, people need to realize this is not about Donald Trump. He just happens to be really the face of it because they can use that to make him a caricature.
Well, what do you think about his reelection? We only got 50 seconds left. So how about a prediction and a commentary on this campaign summer, and what do you think his election looks like, reelection possibilities look like?
It's so far away, and who is Biden going to pick as his VP? Is he going to be the candidate? Does the economy collapse? Does the dollar collapse? Or do the American people see this is what happens in blue states, and if you want all of America becoming blue and riots and end of police, then go ahead and elect the Democrats, who Gus Hall, the head of the Communist Party at one time, who ran for president in the 70s and 80s out of Minnesota, openly said they were going to take the Democrat Party and turn it into the Communist Party with a three-legged stool strategy. That's what they've done. So if you want to see more rioting and the end of police and burning down of businesses, then go for the Democrat communist candidates. Maybe that will scare the American people into voting again for Donald Trump.
Brannon Howse, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.